State your name.
Kristen Matthews Perry.
Spell your first name and your last name, please.
Kristinperry.
Thank you.
Miss Perry, are you the plaintiff in this case?
Yes, I am.
Would you tell us briefly about your background, where you were born, just a brief summary? Your age, your educational background, just a brief summary, please.
I was born in Illinois, but my parents moved here with me when I was 2 years old. So I've lived in California since I was 2 years old, and I'm 45 years old now. I grew up in Bakersfield, California. I attended grammar school, middle school, high school there, and then I moved away to go to college at UC Santa Cruz. And from there I went to San Francisco State to get my master's degree in social work, and I have worked in the Bay Area ever since.
Describe without, you don't have to identify the name of the employer, but you work for a government agency. I would like you to describe the work that you do, your profession.
My entire career I have worked in the field of child protection, child development, family support. I started out as a child abuse investigator in a Bay Area county, and from there I moved into prevention services for families that were at risk. I became a supervisor and a program manager, and then later on became the executive director of a county agency that supported at-risk children ages 0 to 5. At this time I am the executive director of a statewide agency that provides services and support to families with children 0 to 5.
So how long have you professionally been engaged in the occupation working with children?
For almost 25 years.
On behalf of government agencies of the state of California, did I hear that correctly?
I have spent my entire career working for the government.
What is your relationship with the plaintiff, Sandra Steer?
Sandy is the woman I love, and we live together in Berkeley.
And what is the composition of your family? Is it just the two of you?
No, Sandy and I live together in Berkeley with our children. We have a blended family. We both brought 2 sons into our relationship, and Sandy's children are college age, and my children are high school age.
And when did you meet Miss Steer?
Sandy and I met in, I think, 1996, while we were both working at the same place.
And describe how that relationship, again, in general terms, how did that relationship grow, and what did it grow into?
Well, I remember the first time I met Sandy thinking she was maybe the sparkliest person I ever met, and I wanted to be her friend, and we were friends for a few years, and our friendship became more and more. It became deeper and deeper over time, and then after a few years I began to feel that I might be falling in love with her.
And did it work out that way?
And it did work out that way. I did fall in love with her. I did.
And how did she feel about you?
She told me that she loved me too.
We will be asking her to verify that.
Okay.
How would you describe your sexual orientation?
I am a lesbian.
And tell me what that means to you in your own words. What does it mean to be a lesbian?
Well, for me it means I have always felt strong attraction and interest in women and formed really close relationships with women, and I have only ever fallen in love with women. And the happiest I feel is in my relationship with Sandy because I'm in love with her.
Do you feel that's something that could change, that you could have in the past been interested in the same kind of bonding with men, or do you feel that would be, I know this is somewhat compound, but, or do you feel that could turn into how that could develop in the future?
Let's see, which question do you want her to answer?
Do you feel that in the past you could have developed that same kind of bond with a man?
I was unable to do that. As I said, I grew up in Bakersfield, California, and it was in the 70s and 80s. And all of my friends, as we were getting older and they were beginning to date, became more and more interested in boys. And I recognized that there was something that would have been the best thing for me to do if I could. And I did date a few boys because it did make life easier, you know? Then I would have a date to go to the prom to, or I could go to a party too. But as I got a little bit older, it became clear to me that I didn't feel the same way that my friends did about boys, and that there was something different about me.
Do you feel that you were born with those feelings, with that kind of sexual orientation?
Yes, I do.
Do you feel it could change in the future? Do you have a sense that it might somehow change?
I'm 45 years old. I don't think so.
Why are you the plaintiff in this case?
Because I want to marry Sandy. I want to have a stable and secure relationship with her that then we can include our children in. And I want the discrimination we are feeling with Proposition 8 to end and for a more positive, joyful part of our lives to begin.
What does the institution of marriage mean to you? Why do you want that?
Well, I have never really let myself want it until now. Growing up as a lesbian, you don't let yourself want it because everyone tells you you are not going to ever have it. So in some ways, it's hard for me to grasp what it would even mean, but I do see other people who are married, and I think what it looks like is that you are honored and respected by your family. Your children know what your relationship is, and when you leave your home and you go to work or you go out in the world, people know what your relationship means. And so then everyone can, in a sense, join in supporting your relationship, which at this point I can only observe as an outsider. I don't have any firsthand experience with what that must be like.
Does it matter that the state is announcing that this is a relationship officially recognized by the state of California?
Yes.
Marriage?
Yes.
And is that part of something that goes into why you want this to happen for you?
I want this to happen for me because I do everything else I can to do to make myself a contributing, responsible member of this state. And the state isn't letting me feel happy. It's not letting me experience my full potential because I am not permitted to experience everything I might feel if this barrier were removed.
Did you and Miss Steer ever attempt to be married?
We did.
And tell us what happened when that was and exactly what your experience was.
Well, in 2003, I proposed to Sandy without any way of knowing that everything that's developed regarding gay marriage in California was about to develop. And instead, I did it as a way to express my personal interest in marrying her.
Do you, as you go through life every day, feel that the other effects of discrimination on basis of your sexual orientation are...
Every day.
Tell us about that.
Well, when I was an adolescent and beginning to become more and more aware of my sexuality, I struggled to feel like everybody else, to look and feel like everybody else. And for it to even be a struggle in the first place was hard. And I was well aware of the comments and jokes that were circulating through my school at the time, and some of them were directed at me. And as I got older and clearer about who I am, and I could say that I was a lesbian out loud, and that would be met at times with criticism or with skepticism. And what I want to say about me and being out is, you know, that I go to great lengths to not have that happen. I don't want to draw people's criticism. In fact, quite the opposite. I would really like people to like me. So since I know that I have this trait and that I can't change that people don't like me, I have this trait and I can't change what they don't like. I go to great lengths to have other traits that people do like. So I put a significant amount of time and energy into being likable so that when the discriminatory things happen, either I can turn it around. So, for example, if I'm on a plane and somebody comes up and I've saved a seat for Sandy, but she's not there yet, and they say, "Is it saved?" And I say, "Yes." And they say, "For whom?" And I say, "For my partner." And they say, "Could you please move so that I can sit there?" Or if we are in a restaurant or in a store and we travel through the store together, people want to know if we're sisters or cousins or friends. And I have to decide every day if I want to come out everywhere I go and take the chance that somebody will have a hostile reaction to my sexuality, or just go there and buy the microwave, and we went there to buy and to buy it without having to go through all that again. And the decision every day to come out or not come out at work, at home, at PTA, at music, at soccer is exhausting. So much of the time I just choose to do as much of that as I can handle doing in any given day.
Was coming out something that was difficult for you to do? Was it difficult?
It was sort of gradual, but probably not so long. I think probably by the time I was 18 or 19, I did know that. I was able to talk to myself about that, and then I could tell other people over the next few years. But it is what you often hear lesbians and gays say. I feel like once I realized that about myself, then I could say, I think that I have been gay from the beginning. But it was a gradual process at first.
You've had to explain this to your children.
Yes.
Was that difficult?
Well, they don't know me any other way, so, you know, it's different probably if you were living as a heterosexual person, but for me, I've always been their mom, and in their entire lives I've been out, so.
Have you and Sandy entered into a registered domestic partnership in California?
Yes.
Tell us when you did that.
That was in August of 2004.
That was easy to do? Does California make it simple?
Yeah, it was I think it was a form.
That you submit to the state?
That we completed it. I think we had to have it notarized and then we mailed it in.
What does domestic partnership mean to you compared to marriage?
Well, we are registered domestic partners based on just legal advice that we received for creating an estate plan. So we saw a lawyer who works with couples on those things, and we completed a number of forms, a durable power of attorney, last will and testament, and she recommended we also do the domestic partnership agreement at the same time. So there were just a number of those kinds of documents that we completed.
You regard it as something of a property transaction or an estate planning transaction?
It was. Well, that's when we did ours during that process, and it was, I believe it has some unique features that it was a little different than durable power of attorney or a will, and so we completed it. It allows us to access each other's health benefits and some other benefits through our employers.
Is it as good as marriage?
Well, to me, they are not the same thing at all. You know, I view the domestic partnership agreement as precisely that, an agreement, a legal document, and in some ways memorializes some of our responsibilities to each other. But it isn't the same thing as a celebration or something we don't remember the day it happened or invite people over on that day. We just did that as a part of the things we did as a couple to protect ourselves since we can't get married.
One of the issues that the court is going to have to deal with here is how is that domestic partnership relationship different to you than marriage? And why is it that you want marriage so much when you already have this opportunity?
Well, I don't have access to the words that describe my relationship right now. I'm a 45-year-old woman. I have been in love with a woman for 10 years. And I don't have a word to tell anybody about that. I don't have a word.
Would the word do it?
Well, why would everybody be getting married if it didn't do anything? I think it must do something. It appears to be really important to people, and I would really like to use the word too, because it symbolizes maybe the most important decision you make as an adult. Who you choose. No one does it for you. You weren't born with that as your cousin and your uncle, your aunt. You choose them over everybody else, and you want to feel that it's going to stick, and that you will have the protection and the support and the inclusion that comes from letting other people know that you feel that way.
Do you think it would matter in your neighborhood and your community that you would be able to say that you and Sandy were married? Would it cause people to treat you differently?
I think it would be an enormous relief to our friends who are married. Our straight heterosexual friends that are married almost view us in a way that I know they love us, but I think that they feel sorry for us, and I can't stand it. You know, many of them are either in their second marriage or their first marriage, but nevertheless, they have a word, and they belong to this institution or this group. And I think of a time recently when I went with Sandy happily to a football game at the high school where two of our kids go. And we were up in the bleachers and we were greeted with these smiling faces of other parents sitting there waiting for the game to start. And I was so acutely aware that I thought they are all married and I'm not.
It sounds to me like your heterosexual friends don't feel threatened if you were to get married. That same-sex marriage doesn't sound like it threatens them.
No. The friends that we have, I think, would feel better about their marriages if we could be married too. They would feel like they get to help support our family in a way that is familiar to them, makes sense to them. Right now they are a little bit unsure, just like we are, of what we should all be doing because we are outside of any sort of tradition. It's just sort of this thing we invented, but that no one but us understands.
Have you heard the argument, I think probably in various different places, that allowing you to get married to a person of the same sex would damage the institution, the traditional institution of marriage? Do you agree?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for expert testimony.
Sustained.
Have you discussed with Sandy the impact on the marriage relationship itself if you were to prevail in this lawsuit?
Yes. Yes, of course we have. We have talked about it, and Sandy has been married before, and so, you know, I really envy her having had that experience. But we both believe that there would be a settling in and a deepening of our commitment if we could get through this instead of feeling like it's everybody else's decision.
Did you, prior to filing this lawsuit, seek a marriage license?
Yes.
What happened? Describe that.
We went to the Alameda County Recorder's office in May, having reached the point where we wanted to see if there was a permanent solution to this problem and wanted to know in a more concrete way how Prop 8 was being enacted. And we indeed pulled a number, filled out a form, waited for our turn, and the clerk that day, we sat down in front of her and she opened up her computer and looked at the form we were trying to get, and her eyes got really big, and she looked at us and she said, "I'm sorry, but there are reasons why I don't think I can do what you are asking me to do, but I'm not comfortable not doing it. So I'm going to go get my boss and he is going to have to do it." So she left the cubicle and she went upstairs, and there was a long delay, and she came downstairs with her supervisor. And he had written down this Prop 8, the statute, I think, and he read from it. And he was very nervous and he was very upset and very, I'm sure, worried that we were going to be upset as well, which we were. And he said after reading the statute, "I'm very sorry that I cannot give you this license, that I hope someday that I can, and I hope that you will come back."
Have you thought about the impact upon you and Sandy and your relationship of bringing a lawsuit and being a plaintiff in a civil rights case and what that's like?
I have been thinking about it a lot lately. And Sandy and I really like our life together. We really like our life where we live in our house and we see our kids and we see our friends, and we don't want anything to change about our life. In fact, we would really like our life to just get better and better. And when I think about whether or not what we want to have happen would make it possible for other people to have that happen, that makes me really happy. Because mostly though, it comes from a place of just wanting our lives to feel better than they do right now.
If the courts of the United States were ultimately to decide that you and the other that person seeking to marry someone of the same sex did indeed have the constitutional right to get married, do you think that would have an effect on the other acts of discrimination against you?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
Close, but objection overruled. State of mind, you may answer.
I believe, for me personally, as a lesbian, that if I had grown up in a world where the most important decision I was going to make as an adult was treated the same way as everybody else's decision, that I would not have been treated the way I was growing up or as an adult. There's something so humiliating about everybody knowing that you want to make a decision and you don't get to do that. You know, it's hard to face the people at work and the people even here right now. And many of you have this, but I don't. So I still have to find a way to feel okay and not take every bit of discriminatory behavior towards me too personally, because in the end, that will only hurt me and my family. So if Prop 8 were undone and kids like me growing up in Bakersfield right now could never know what this felt like, then I assume that their entire lives would be on a higher arc, that they would live with a higher sense of themselves, and that would improve the quality of their entire life.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.